So again, good morning and good afternoon to everyone tuning into this IB webinar today. For those who don't know me, my name is Tara and I work with IB, and we are a community and business management software specifically for the needs of interior designers. And designers use IB to create and send proposals, generate tear sheets, invoice clients online, track and bill for hours on the go, and all of that fun stuff. And every Wednesday, we host a webinar for designers to learn about different ways they can manage their business more efficiently and more profitably. So today, I'm really excited to welcome Sean Lowe to the IB webinar stage. Sean is the founder and president of the Business of Being Created, which is a consulting firm focused on providing practical advice to those in the business of being creative, including designers like you. And he has a very impressive list of the who's who of creative business in terms of his clients. Actually, among his interior design clients are Vincent Wolf, Nate Burkus, Frank Pontario, Sawyer Burson, and Barry Dixon. So today, Sean will discuss the power of niche, overcoming the fear of rejection, developing that one thing that truly matters most, and using your one thing to be completely outrageous in what you do as a designer and how you do it. So in terms of the format of today's presentation, Sean will be presenting for the next 45 minutes and will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation. And for those of you who are designers who are not yet using IB, I strongly encourage you to stay with us after Sean's presentation so my colleague Risa can jump on and walk you through the IB software to show you what IB is all about. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome Sean. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here and to go through this presentation and do some work together with all of you. We're all back, so I'm very excited.
We're all back. So I'm going to give you access to go ahead and share your screen. So you should receive an invite right now.
You guys can see me. I can only see my presentation, which is great. But what we're going to do today is take a little bit of a journey and go through what I like to call getting to the power of niche, right? And so I'll fast forward. We'll get to this is who I am. This is the agenda. And so what we're going to do is use the power of niche to move through the fear of rejection, and then get to how to overcome that fear of rejection using the power of niche. And so it's not going to make a lot of sense right at this beginning part of things, and we're going to not take a long twisted ride, but a pretty good fun ride to get to why the one thing matters tremendously, and how you being outrageous is what is going to matter in your interior design business going forward, and from my point of view, right? And appreciate that there are many points of views. There are definitely a lot of people out there that have different ways of thinking about things, and I value them. I'm a niche guy, so we're going to know that right at the beginning. But before we do that, before I go through my whole thing, what I want to say is that I hope that some of you might consider putting in what you believe is your one thing, right? The one thing is the very thing that you have to have in your business. And I hope that you submit them to Tara, and she can kind of weed through them. At the end, maybe what we'll do is she'll pick one or two of them, and we'll evaluate what that one thing really is. And so, so that we can have a little flavor to it. It's the one thing you have to have in your business, the one thing that no matter what has to be there. And it would be fun if you submitted a few of them, and through the course of the 45 minutes, I will look through them and pick a couple, and we'll show the exercise. And what looks like it's super easy on the outside, hopefully after you hear this, is not so easy. And we'll hopefully give you also, even though it's not so easy, we'll give you a roadmap to how you may change and overcome what is the fear of rejection and how that got to be. So let's jump into the presentation now so we can kind of set the framework for what it is that ultimately we get to in the power of niche, and why I believe the power of niche today more than ever is really vitally important. Okay, so off we go. So before I show this next slide, it's the beginning of September. You're right back from the summer. Maybe you're super busy, in which case, awesome, congratulations. Maybe the phone hasn't quite rang yet for your fall/winter/spring clientele that are coming in, and you're starting to get a little bit nervous. And even though you may not want to admit it, you sort of look like that. So, oh my God, what could possibly happen? How could that be? What is going wrong here, right? The phone isn't ringing, or the email isn't coming, text isn't coming as fast as I want it to. And so all those emotions get stirred up inside. It's like, well, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? So really, what are you afraid of, right? No more business, you're going to go broke, you're going to lose everything. And just to stop for a second right there, is that true? Is that really what you're afraid of? Is it really what you're panicked about? Because if you've been doing this long enough, I guess if you've been, brand new to the business and, you're just trying to make your way, I understand. But for those of you who are not, and those of you who are, let's call it, been in the business more than a couple, 3 years and have a sense of themselves and what they do, and have built a sense of portfolio and clientele, and you know kind of really what you're about, right? Or you're working on it anyway. So you give yourself that permission to say, oh my God, I'm not going to get the clients. I'm going to go broke. I'm going to lose everything. And that sends you down the road of, oh, what do I have to do? And of course, the reaction to that is like, maybe I have to take this client I don't really want to take. Maybe I have to do this kind of work that I don't really want to do. Maybe I have to do the very thing that it is not why I have to do that, in the guise of what? Paying the bills, of staying alive and doing that kind of stuff. And what I want to submit to you is that while those may all be real, what's really lying underneath it, which I gave a little hint at just before, is the fear of rejection. And so why are we talking about the fear of rejection? Why are we here, right? Because today, it's not about getting any kind of business. It's getting the business where you're vulnerable, getting the business where you say, this is the kind of work that I do. This is what I'm about. This is the type of design that matters to me. And as we all know, there are exponential ways of designing, whether you're love intimate spaces, grand spaces, and fancy spaces, and with a bunch of ornate or super modern. It is what it is. And so what I want to say to you is that when you don't get a client and you are willing to lay out who you actually are, they're rejecting a huge part of you. And nobody likes to be rejected for the very person that we are, right? And so, and when I say person, your creative business is a reflection of who you are as an artist. And so it is, in that way, a person with feelings and with a desire to do emotional labor for their clients. That's what your business is about, is in connecting with a client emotionally so that you can satisfy who they are, right? And so for purpose of this, because what Ivy is, I have assumed and do assume that most of you are in the social/residential world. This does apply to commercial spaces too, but really this is because there is an element of emotionality, but really want to make sure that we're focused on the idea that this is for social clients, for personal one-on-one residential type of work, right? Because in that way, you are actually the star of the show, creating the environment. So we just to caveat it. But that would be about fear of rejection, right? Because they don't want you, right? And they may want somebody else. And that place sends you down a road of an addiction to yes. And so rather than face that rejection, rather than face the idea of, my God, they don't want me because of how I particularly see the world, what you do is you start to cover it, right? And you say, well, I really love to do entire homes, but I'll do just a big part of the area too, because they're saying yes to me, right? And so long as they're saying yes to me, it's like, wow, that's at least I'm wanted, and at least I'll do it. And in the meantime, what you really want to do is the entire project. You don't actually want to do the work of partial, right? You don't want to do, or easier said is you don't want to do, they have a budget of 100, you needed 200, right? So, but you compromise and say you'll do that stuff. So what happens is that you start to cover over the fear of rejection with what? An addiction to yes, right? It's how we cover things. It's how we move through. And I've seen it over and over and over again with tons of designers who are unwilling to face that fear. And yes, there is a component of, oh my God, I could lose my business, but really the fear of saying people just don't want me, right, for what I offer and how I do it. So then I will cover that, right? And I'll do those things. And after a while, you start to just keep on saying yes to things, and you get lost in who you are, right? You get lost in what it is that you actually are doing, right? And while that may have worked in a pre-mobile world, a pre-internet world, it can't work today, because my point and where we're headed to is that if you don't know who you are, you can't cure the addiction to yes, right? And if the world doesn't know who you are, there's no cure, right? So then the road to recovery is, hint, hint, the long tail. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? This is not where we're going. This is not what this is. Well, this is my statement on what I believe to be the transformation of the design industry. It's understanding that the long tail and what it's about and what it's talking about, right, is incredibly important for all, let's call it significant designers, of which all of you are, right, to truly understand and value. And again, this is how I see the world, and maybe I'm not, seeing it correctly, but I've been in this a while, and I'm confident in what I believe. So let's go through the long tail so that you can understand how this is actually going to get you to the place where you will no longer be addicted to yes, where you will understand that the grounding requires you to be specific to who you are, where you will appreciate the value of niche, right? And so after I've finished talking about the long tail, I'm going to give an example and I'll show you what I believe, right? And you can then really see there are two different camps, and hopefully you'll appreciate why I say what I say. So the long tail. The long tail is obviously, it's a mathematical formula. You're seeing it right now. But the long tail is based off of what I'm talking about. The long tail is based off of Chris Anderson's Wired article that he then turned into a book, and he wrote it in 2002, and it's gone on and gone on and gone on. And what the long tail is very specifically saying is that before the internet, right, came along, that most of us lived in mass, which is the beautiful green part of the bulk of things, right, where 50% of people live in that really dense place, right? So meaning that if we live in pre-internet where there is, in your world, right, there are 4 shelter magazines you have to get into, HGTV maybe, right, but probably not. And so the distribution of people finding out who you are and trying to know who you are, it just doesn't, it's not there, right? So there's no way for people to appreciate the niche that you may want to inhabit, right, without massive work. So you have to almost become mass in order to get known, right, in a certain way, right? So fast forward to where we are now, and what the long tail says is that the best way to think about it is niche matters, right? Is that there is a place for on the internet and the digital world for those who care to discover who you are, right? So the more specific you are, the better. Right now, ultimately, what you would love to have is the ability to own all of the different niches that are out there so that you have ultimate choice. That would be Amazon, that's iTunes. But what's evolved to is to say is that markets that heretofore could never exist, right? The idea that, hey, I only like to do, 2,000 square foot beach houses, that are located on bluffs, right? That could never have existed before the internet. It can definitely exist now. And I think all of you can appreciate that you could definitely find people that want you to build that beach house on the bluff, right, for them and build a business based on it, right? That is what the long tail is talking about. And the value of that long tail is to explore the value of niche. So the difference in mass is I'm going to speak to a lot of people and try to resonate them at some place versus niche, which is I'm going to try to talk to the smallest possible audience that will care the most and pay the most, right? So that's basically the long tail. And what we've said now is that actually the twist on what's happened over the 18 years since Chris Anderson wrote it is that the long tail has now become series of long tails. So what was once a long tail, right, in terms of what was once mass and now what's his niche, has consistently moved so that what's now niche is now the long tail, right? And so as we keep doing that, and so we keep exploiting that, right? So and I will give you, you're saying, what are you talking about now? I will show you a great example of exactly what it is, and hopefully we'll drive the point home to everybody. So it's what I call the power of dilution versus the power of distillation, right? So dilution is being something to everybody, right? Versus distillation is only being something for the people who care the most. So a great example would be Starbucks versus Blue Bottle Coffee, right? And so for those of you who don't know who Blue Bottle Coffee is, so Blue Bottle Coffee is a super kind of high-end coffee chain, about 40 to 50 stores. Got started by a couple guys in Oakland about 10 years ago. They roast their own beans. They do everything kind of soup to nuts. They source their own beans. Sometimes they grow their own beans. They are careful in their preparation of coffee. They are obsessed with coffee, right? So, and here you have over here on the left side, you have Starbucks, right? So Starbucks is 23,000 stores, is worth about $80 billion. And so Starbucks, as we would all agree, means a lot of things to a lot of people. For some people, it's a great place to hang out. For some people, it's your office. For some people, it's a cool cup of coffee. For some people, the music is awesome. For some people, the snacks are awesome, right? It means something to a lot of people. That green mermaid stands for a lot of things, right? And you will go in and enjoy a cup of Starbucks, right, for that purpose, right? So you compare that to a Blue Bottle cup of coffee, which is probably about twice as expensive as Starbucks and takes about twice as long to get, right? And so the idea of it is like, wait a second, Starbucks is 23,000. So why are you comparing Blue Bottle coffee? Well, we have to care about it because the market tells us to care. And the reason the market tells us to care, so those of you who don't know, in last summer, 2017, Nestle bought Blue Bottle coffee for $500 million, right? Again, 50 stores, right? 50 stores roughly, and no real plans to ever be huge like that. And paid that much for the brand, Blue Bottle coffee. And the idea of it is if you kind of play around with the numbers a little bit and say, hey, Starbucks worth about 80 billion, right? And Blue Bottle is 500 million. So let's say roughly, what is it? Like 160 times, which would get, roughly what, 4,000 stores, right? And so just kind of back of the envelope math, nothing really too scientific about it. It tells you that a Blue Bottle coffee customer is worth 5 times what a Starbucks customer is worth. Just process that for a second in your world, right? That those that care are worth 5 times as much that sort of care. So the reason I live in the power of niche is my fundamental philosophy is every single creative business, interior design, event design, graphic design, fashion, photography, anything lives in the power of niche. You have no choice but to be in the power of niche because your scale is not going to become meaningful to a lot of people. Your scale is going to come from meaning something to people that care a whole lot, right? And that's the point, that the power of distillation is a wonderful business. No one is here to say that Starbucks isn't a great business, that Ford, McDonald's, and all those mega brands or Target are not amazing businesses. They are. They're just not your business, right? Your business, I would submit to you, is Blue Bottle coffee. And when you go down the road, to circle back, when you go down the road to feeling like you are addicted to yes, nervous about what's going to happen, really dealing with the fear of rejection by becoming more things to everybody, going down the road of trying to become Starbucks, right? So that you can find somebody to do that. And we're all guilty of it, right? We all want to, and it takes a lot of effort to say, I'm really not going down the right road. Because the idea of it is that you must train yourself, right? That when you confront the fear of rejection, confront the idea that the right client isn't showing up, that you have to get more niche, not less. You have to say no, and I don't ever say no, by the way, because I think that energetically sucks. I only say yes on my terms, right? So as I become more niche, I become more convicted in my terms. I become more convicted in what I stand for. I become more convicted in what matters. And I also want to make sure that before we leave this example, now think about what Blue Bottle coffee is doing, because that's going to lead me to my next point and ultimately get to the place where we're going to hopefully do some work together. Blue Bottle coffee is asking its customers to wait twice as long and pay twice as much for a cup of coffee that they could get at Starbucks. And Starbucks is asking, obviously, to stay a little bit longer versus like a Dunkin' Donuts, right? Not a whole lot longer, right? So for Blue Bottle coffee customers, it's not about speed of delivery. It's not about the idea of a cheap cup of coffee. It's about they're willing to invest what it takes to get a Blue Bottle cup of coffee, right? Which is twice as much, twice as long, right? So the idea of an expedient cup of coffee is not in the DNA of Blue Bottle coffee, right? So think about that for a second when you talk about your interior design business. What it means is that Blue Bottle Coffee, because Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and all the places to get coffee have been around a lot longer than Blue Bottle Coffee. So Blue Bottle Coffee, to use the word that I love, is outrageous, right? They're making an outrageous demand. But the only way they get to make an outrageous demand is because they make an outrageous promise. If you love coffee, if coffee is your obsession, we are the place for you. And because we are the place for you, you will do what we ask you to do to be fulfilled in our outrageous promise. So therefore, because of the outrageous promise, they ask for an outrageous demand. Now think about that when it comes to your design business. How many of you, when you think about it, are making an outrageous promise? And I'm not talking about you're going to get the best design ever, because that means nothing to me, right? Best design ever for who, right? It's what are you doing that's outrageous for your clients that care, right? It presupposes that you know who your clients are and you know who you are, right? So you can't do that if you're addicted to yes. You can't do that if what you're looking for is to get somebody to just validate you by giving you $1, right? Not going to work out. Not going to work out today. And I would tell you that the value of niche, the value of being Blue Bottle, is that you get to be truer and truer and truer to yourself. And that's liberating. So that's why it is the cure to the addiction to yes, because when you live your truth, you become more true to yourself. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Everybody wants Blue Bottle Coffee to be purer to themselves than not. So let's keep moving forward. Such a simple concept. Such a simple concept. It's what I started with before, and what I'm hoping that some of you are submitting to Tara. The one thing that matters most, the one thing that you must have, in itself must be outrageous. In itself must be the thing that clients have to appreciate and you have to have, so that you can demand of them to do what you need to do in order to fulfill that promise. It sounds so straightforward, right? And so the reason it's not is that a lot of people will tell you that, oh, make that happen, make that be what it is. And you can say, this is your why, as Simon Sinek would say, this is your value, as some consultants would say, this is the power of your marketing. I'm not a marketing guy. This has nothing to do with marketing. This has to do with your business. This has to do with how your business runs. This has to do when the client shows up, that they, as soon as they show up, they know they're home. Getting them to show up, that's a whole other thing. That's not why we're here. What we're here for is when they do show up, what happens, right? And what I'm submitting to you, what happens in the first 2 minutes when your business, not the marketing part of you, but when your business talks, it must be outrageous. It must own its one thing. And then what happens is once it owns this one thing, right, we have to see it everywhere. And to make it a very specific exercise, that one thing has to be in 5 places in your business, whether it's in your contract, it's how you price, it's how you meet, it's how you install, it's how you conceptualize, it's demand. I'll give a very quick example so that we can go through it. If what you really pride yourself of, I hear this all the time, is I like to design based on who my client is. They've seen my work, they appreciate it, but every single one of the pieces of work that I do is incredibly custom, right? And as a reflection of the people who I work with. Well, there's nothing, let's call it, in your process. You say that, that's awesome, that's amazing, right? But you say that in your process, and yet there's no design focused way of doing something. There's no demand of a client to sit with you for 3 hours a day for 5 days in a row, right? And you will all say to me, well, no client would ever do that. And I'm submitting to you, that's not the world we live in anymore. The right client will absolutely do that and will absolutely pay you to do that. That's why a Blue Bottle Coffee customer pays twice as much and waits twice as long, right? If you're willing to be outrageous, you are also given permission to be outrageous in your demand, right? I can definitely give a client example if someone wants me to, outside of interior design. Hopefully we'll do this in real time, and we'll go through it. And the reason is that I would love to go through this in real time, is that you're going to see the difficulty that's there, because as we live in a world where we want to be accepted, where we want to be, seen as okay, part of the club, we delude ourselves. We make ourselves not who we need to be, right? And therefore our clients get actually lost, right? They actually don't appreciate that the really valuable part of what we do is being a guide. right? And being a guide requires three things: that you tell your client where they were, where they are, and where they're going. And the only way you can do that is if you have specific perspective on how to do that, right? And you are very specific in what it is that they have to do in order to get to the goal, right? And so what I want to submit to you in kind of just, let's see, we have about 10 or so minutes, and I'll play around, but I might even give a little more time so that we can do this in real time too. Is that this is the vision that 90% of the designers that I see out there believe is success, getting to the top of the mountain. And woohoo, look at us, we get to the top of the mountain. The reason I think it's a non-starter, and the reason I think it's actually irrelevant that you got to the top of the mountain, is because it's not about getting to the top, because all of you are going to get your clients to the top, every single one of you. It is the definition of being a designer that you will create an amazing space. If that's not going to happen, you don't belong in the business, period. So selling the very fact that you're going to get to the top of the mountain when every single designer must get to the top of the mountain is missing the entire point. The entire point of being in business has nothing to do with getting to the top. It has everything to do with the journey. And so success looks like not this, it looks like this. And I want you to appreciate that the difference between these two is the difference between you being addicted to yes and you being true to who you are. What I want to submit to you why this is such an important definition of success to me is just let's look at this picture for a little while. First of all, do the people in yellow look like they're having any fun whatsoever? No. Do they look like they're going to, celebrate? Do they look like they're going off on their own? No. What they look like is that they're following the person in the red up the mountain because he or she knows the way, right? And he or she has worked so hard to build trust that the clients can put their head down and just follow the guide to get to where they want to go. That is the definition of your business. And that is what your purpose is for. And when you have your one thing, and you've asked for your one thing over and over again, and it's always present in your business, and you build your business around that one thing, then you get to here, right? Then you get to the place where you are earned the permission for people to just put their heads down and follow you because they have to, right? Because they know where you're taking them, they can't get to by themselves. I want you to look at this picture and ask yourself whether or not the people in yellow could get to the top without the person in red. The answer is probably not, right? So when you appreciate that this is your business, this is the world you inhabit, this is what makes you different from everybody else, right? And earning this permission, earning the right to do this is the very thing that will define your interior design business. And if you don't do the work, you will live here, right? Where everybody else lives, and you will be eaten alive, and you will be saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to, and you will go down the road and go down the road and go down the road, right? Because you don't believe in that this is what really matters, right? Lots of people can do pretty today, right? Pretty is dead. Pretty died the day the mobile became popular, right? And clients don't need pretty. Clients need guides. And you are a guide, you are the expert, and you have a perspective on a world they can no longer inhabit, right? And so what I want to say about this is because obviously they want to get to the end, and that is your goal, is obviously to get them here, right? The reason that you get here is because by the time you get there, they're transformed by the experience, so much so that when they reach the end, the transformation of the journey is what takes them all the way into fulfillment, right? Into the idea that they made it with you through the journey to get to this place, right? And that transformational element in the work that you do is something you must own for yourself. They're not looking for you to be their helper. They're not looking for you to make a pretty space, right? They're looking for you to transform their lives. And nobody would embark on this journey and follow you this way unless they were looking for that kind of exponential return on emotional labor. And if you don't appreciate that, that's what your mission is, right? To give somebody the idea that you have invested with them in the relationship to create an environment that does the very best version, so that's a bad way to say it. It creates the very best version of the lives they choose to live because of your work, right? That's transformative. And that's where you are. And then if you go back and you can see, hey, wait a second, I really do invest in niche. I really do invest in the idea that my one thing really matters. And I will build my business on the one thing. What I also want to tell you is like, do you think that these people paid, and money is both energy and dollars, not just dollars, but do you think these people who are now completely all in with this guide to get up to the top of the mountain, do you think they have paid everything in order to be successful? The answer is yes, right? Because they know deep in their bodies that they could never have done it themselves. And they will willingly, without fear, but simply out of desire and connection and trust, give permission to this guide to get them to where they need to go. Those are the people that pay you the most money. Those are the people that will give you what you need, right, to get what you want, right? And that is the cure to this all. It sounds incredibly simple, but it's also incredibly difficult to do because it requires you to know what the work that you want to do. It requires you to know what you need from clients. It requires you to have perspective on what that's going to be. And it has to be this way of talking in a way that you're going to, as your business speaks. What I would end with is this, is that when you meet with a client for the first time, imagine for a second there are two of you in the room. The first one of you is the place that you're probably most comfortable, which is the designer, right? The designer who has a portfolio and has the ability to talk about what you love about design, and he or she is just doing what you do, right? Oh my God, love that you love my Instagrams, love that you have this stuff. And so on the right next to you is your twin, smiling and nodding her head or his head, right? And saying, yeah, 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 yeah. And finally the client turns to you and says, so what are you here for? I take it you're the business, right? So how does this work, right? And remember, the twin of you, the marketing person, you can't talk about, well, we'll just create a fabulous space for you. You're going to love it. Trust us, don't you know, right? That doesn't do anything. And saying, well, we just believe in great design, and you work with us and we'll make your life easy and stress-free to get to the beautiful space. Still didn't tell me anything, right? So the answer is that when that twin is supposed to talk, he or she has to put her arms down and start talking, and has 2 minutes to talk about what the one thing is, why it matters, and how we're going to get there. We pride ourselves on custom spaces. We do need to let you know that within the first week, you're going to have to meet with us at least 10 hours. That's a lot different than we're going to create a pretty space for you. Yeah? Sounds super easy. Those of you who might be listening may say, hey, that's pretty alien. I could never do that. To which question I want to ask back to you, why not? Because it's who you are, right? It's what you're about, and it's the one thing that matters. And appreciate that if you see the world a little bit as I do, that niche is what is the driver of creative business. And through niche, we're able to speak our truths. And through our truths, we get to be ever more outrageous and therefore do better and better work and do with better and better clients. That's what changes the world. And if you see that along with me, you can rebuild your business if you're in this place to being stuck. And if you haven't quite yet done it, you can do it now, right? And even if you decide to, hey, only take a few things from it, what I would suggest to you that being outrageous is purposeful, and it's what the world needs. So that's my talk. I do hope that some of you have I'm going to give up my screen, and hopefully some of you have submitted to Tara some of the your own one things, and so she's done a hopefully good job of editing, and then we can switch back and you'll see my lovely face, and we will hopefully go through a couple of them. So I'm switching back.
Perfect, Sean. Thank you so much. That was so interesting and really makes me even reevaluate for myself. What is my niche? Who am I? It's so important, and we actually got lots of interesting submissions. And to protect people's privacy, I won't name the designer who mentioned this niche, but I will read some aloud, and please let us know what you think. Empty nesters. Should I read them all out, or do you want to go one by one?
I love the idea of empty nesters. So what's interesting about that, and I would need to know more from this designer, is empty nesters is an amazing thing, right? So empty nesters are, are these empty nesters who've never done design before? Are these empty nesters who are, obviously looking to make a change, but they're sophisticated, or they're just looking to start their lives over again, right? So what role do you play? That's the beauty of the power of niche to me. Empty nesters is a great kind of global niche, right? But within that empty nesters, that's what I'm trying to say too. Is like, here it is an example of that would heretofore be the long tail. And now within this now empty nesters, there's all these sub niches, right? Super sophisticated empty nesters looking for, to have vacation home and a home base, or empty nesters looking to downsize because the kids are gone and they've never invest in design for themselves before, but they're not really sophisticated, but they want to have this space for the rest of their lives. Where are we, right? So the answer what happens then is, which is a great example of what it would be, is like, hey, I love working with empty nesters, but hasn't done necessarily the work of how are you going to be outrageous to empty nesters, right? So it's like saying, hey, I want to find people that enjoy a cup of coffee, but I don't want people that want the best cup of coffee, right? So that's would be my response back to that empty nester, right?
Great. And actually, this same designer submitted another niche that they focus on, which again, I think you'll say a very similar thing. Households with double income, no kids.
Well, I love that because the answer is, can you serve them, right? Because double income, no kids, what hopefully you're talking about are, very driven professional people that don't have a whole lot of time, right? And so if you're going to be the designer who loves to engage with clients and wants to, let's call it, I'm not saying you love to go shopping with them, but you're going to give them 4 or 5 options. You're going to want to get them to make that selection with you. And that's the kind of designer you are. You can't work with these people. They're not your people, right? They're not who you are. So if what you're trying to say to me is like, ooh, that looks like a really nice little golden egg over there, these super wealthy double income people that have no time and are really not invested in doing that work with you, but simply want what you do, right? That doesn't mean they don't want great design. It doesn't mean they don't want a beautiful space. They just have no time to make an invested decision, right? They need to be educated super fast so that they can make a real decision very quickly. Meaning, show me what you think and I'll say yes to it or not, right? And that's a very courageous place to be if you're that kind of designer, right? That means if you want to show two samples for them to decide, you shouldn't be working with them. You should be working with that. They said you should be the designer that says, this is what I think, like it or don't, right? And if you don't like it, there's the door, right? And you build your business that way. You build your business that way. You would say, you would have a presentation that would be scheduled as they engage you. That presentation, they would be able to basically sit down with you for 2 hours, right? And then you'll present the entire project to them, right?
Right. Really interesting. How's this one? I love all these submissions. Thank you, everyone who contributed their niche. It's really such an inspiring conversation, and we're learning so much from Sean. So thank you. Global, ethically sourced, one-of-a-kind products.
Well, if someone's going to pay you, I've had a client which I love, right? So she is really, really amazing, and she prides herself on shopping, right? So she prides herself, not necessarily global, but certainly scouring every single place in her sources and resources. That's what she does, right? And so when she came to me, she was like, she had a traditional model of she's getting a percentage and getting like a fee and stuff like that. I'm like, that's kind of crazy, because shopping for you with your client to discover those things that you most love is how your design evolves. And so we went from saying, hey, wait a second, and the shopping day experience is the thing that she most wanted. And so again, outrageous promise, outrageous demand. I know places you'll never find. I know places and things that you'll never discover. We will discover that together. So her shopping days are a minimum of 3, and they're $10,000 a day. Because plus a commission, and she has a backlog of clients. Outrageous demand, you're going to spend $10,000 and 10 hours with me, at least 3 days, and I will fulfill that outrageous promise to find something that nobody else will discover. No other designer will discover, and we're not going to do those things, right, that traditional designers would do. So to answer that question is, that business better look a whole lot more like that than, hi, I get 35% and you'll pay for my travels, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you're missing out the whole piece that the discovery, the a willingness to understand what that global product is should be a willingness to ask to get paid for it, right? Either the
Yep.
client goes with you or you go on your own, in which case you get permission to buy whatever you want, right? It means that they
Mm-hmm.
should, if you're going to go buy for a client, that means they should put all the money in an account, you buy whatever you want. And they don't get to say no.
Right. Preaching, Sean. Love
So I can go on. I can go on all day if we have
it.
more time. I know we have
We'll go just through a couple more
sure.
niches, and then we'll actually address the questions
Yes, definitely.
based on what you shared. Someone shared that their niche is their use of blue in their designs.
I powerfully love that, right? And so the idea is your depth of expert about what blue means, right? And what blue is about and how to use blue and what blue matters is obviously you're finding the people who really care about blue and the emotionality of blue and the willingness to understand blue. And so, for instance, because blue matters so much to you, I might require my client to sit with me for, 3 or 4 hours so that I can explain why blue matters, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
I'll start talking about your design. I will literally teach you a course on blue, and then we will start doing that. And you will pay me to teach you the course on blue, right? And then you'll tell me that you actually understand what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That course could be $5,000 just to learn about blue.
Right. And let's do one more.
Mm-hmm.
The process of sourcing fewer items, but
Mm-hmm.
better and higher quality.
So that's actually a really layered one, right? Because what it means is that your work has to be in a very narrow range. You will have to have, in order to do that, you will have to have defined who you are, right? And so there's a panoply of range of what you can get as a designer. You can go everything from $7,500 square foot all the way to $10,000 square foot, right? There's that place, but where do you sit? What do you do? What do you care about? What is that quality that you want, right? And if you're not good at, the first is the easiest, which is you're not good at saying what's the minimum spend that a client has to have, right? That you couldn't work below, right? That's the first thing. So you have to be willing to say, hi, if you don't have $100 a square foot, forget about what I cost, forget about all the expenses. But if you don't invest $100 a square foot, I can't help you, right? That's the easy part. The harder part, and the answer to the question is actually, what's the top? What work can't you do? Where are you a place where you're going to become uncomfortable? Are you going to become uncomfortable spending $1,000 a square foot? Because it's not what you do, right? You don't actually go there. You don't actually know that place. So unless you know the top, right, you can't define what the quality is, right? So if you can be at the nether regions, but then your bottom is really high too, right? So if you don't have that range, that defined range, and that's not your business, and you're not good at saying what that range is, then you can't get a client to invest in what that range is, right? Because they actually don't know where they're going to fall on that spectrum. Sometimes it'll be way up here, sometimes it'll be down here, wherever it's going to be, because you haven't done the work of saying, this is the range that I work in. I work in, $100 to $250 a square foot, right? When it gets past 350, 400, that's a different kind of experience, a different kind of work. It's something that I can value and appreciate. It's amazing, right? It's just not what I do, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one last one. I think this is a good one. Their niche is luxury Airbnb investors.
Oh, I love that. I love that. But remember now you're trending into the commercial world, which I want to say. And so in that way, the difference between residential and commercial is that you're not the star of the show, right? You're not the star of the show when it comes to commercial. There are other players, right? And so your marketing, if it's an Airbnb, if it's your own personal one, but if it's for investors, right? They're looking for a return on people that would stay there as they would for a hotel. So you're working just as much with a marketing firm as you are with the interior, as you are with somebody who's servicing the property, right? So you're not the star of the show. So understanding that and being willing to say, this is my niche and what I'm about means, quite frankly, that you're a great partner, right? That you really understand what it takes to be a great partner in this way, and that your business is built on being a great partner, and here's what that looks like, right?
Mhm.
I require that we all sit together for however many meetings. I require that these are the feedbacks that I have. I require scheduling, right? That's going to be, this is the demonstrative of why I am such a great partner for you, right?
Mhm. Okay, this is great. Thank you so much. I think that those are the only niches we can cover for today. But again, Sean is available to you, so you can contact Sean and discuss your niche. But let's go over some of the great questions that were submitted during your webinar, Sean. So Amanda asked a great question. She's asking, how do you test the viability of your niche if it's something that's new to you?
The best way to test something, it's a great question, right? And the idea of it is actually really not new to you, right? Because the value of it is something that's intrinsic to you, right? Something that you really appreciate. It's why you got to be a designer in the first place. And so the viability of it, yes, somebody may not buy it. You may not actually have viability about it, right? But unless you can put it out there and celebrate it in a way that people might resonate with it, right? And that's your marketing, and that's who you are, and really making that the story. And somebody contacts you and says, hey, let's see what this is. Then the question is are you willing to go there? Are you willing to say that in all the work you may have done all the way there, you can point to that one thing everywhere, and therefore go and offer yourself the idea of whether or not somebody would pay for it. What I might submit to you, though, is in order to make it with the permutation of your question, is that if you've never done it before and you've never charged for it before, might I suggest you don't dip your toe in? Might I suggest you be outrageous in what it is so that you get what you need, right? Meaning like, hey, because if you give it away for free and you make it a highlight, it's worth what you charge for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, that woman just making, let's say, hey, I never really made it all about blue. I want to make it all about blue. And so I'm going to make you sit down and take a course with me for an hour or so where I'm just going to describe to you why I love blue, right? They don't have to pay for it. They can do it at their own convenience, and you will get exactly no clients. You charge $5,000 for it and say, after blue, I will then test you and we'll give you a deliverable on what we're going to be working on based on your understanding of blue. Then this is how we're going to do that. You have a much better chance of them paying you, right? And paying you not just in dollars for that meeting, but paying you for you to then go and do blue as part of your design, right?
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you. And we have another question here from Dina. Dina is asking, how do you recommend saying no to a client who doesn't fit?
I don't ever say no. As I said that in the presentation, I never say no. What I do say is, and what's also really important about not saying no is it's kind of the value of improv, right? And so the value of improv is you always say yes. You just say yes on your terms. Improv, even though you can't say no and you have to kind of go through it, has more rules about being free than it does. It's the ironic part of it, right? And so your business is very, very much that too. It's like you create the container and the vessel of what it's going to take in order for you to do what you do without lying. I hate, despise, loathe, despicable, think it's awful when a client comes in and what you say is you're too busy, when what you really want to say is this client doesn't fit, right? What you really want to say is, hey, you have to do these things in order for me to work with you, because then every client's a great client. I don't actually like the judgment that, oh my God, this client's not a great fit because you don't like them, right? The point is like, you don't have to like them. If they respect who you are and what you're about, and they want to go through the process as you would have them go through it, right? The person in the picture following the person up the mountain, they don't have to be best friends. They just have to deeply respect what that person is about, right? So in order to give them the confidence to get done, right? And most of the time, yes, sometimes you really enjoy your clients and who they are as people, but a lot of times I have designers that don't, right? What they do appreciate, though, is that those clients do really value what they do. And so for me to answer the question is that I never compromise when I say what I want to do, but that doesn't make me not flexible. And what I mean by that is, think about an accordion for a second, right? When you stretch out the accordion, twist it, shape it, or think about a slinky and twist it and shape it, it all looks different. It doesn't look even remotely the same thing, right? Except it's the same instrument. The same ribs are there. And the only time you break something is when you snap one of the ribs, or you snap a slinky, or you twist it out of shape, right? Then it's not the same thing. So the answer to the question is that be as flexible as you want, do what it's going to be, but what never changes is how you do something. So if you actually think this client's not a good fit, then your demands are going to be outrageous and they're not going to do that. Nobody's going to wait. If you're not a Blue Bottle Coffee customer, nobody's going to wait twice as long and pay twice as much for a cup of coffee. They just don't care about coffee that much, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's my answer.
Okay, great. So actually, we have so we actually have a great follow-up question to what you just said. So Emily's asking, so if a client does agree to your terms at the start of the project, but then as the project progresses, kind of becomes a bad actor, how can you correct that so the project can successfully move forward?
I call it my Veronica Blueberry thing. Right. So for those of you who've seen the Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, right? So she's the one that blows up with the blueberry and gets put down the chute, right, and out of the way. That's what most designers don't have in their business, right? They don't have that ability to say bye-bye, right? And because the reason is it's a longer-winded answer is that it's about climbing a mountain, right? And so if a client decides to go off the path and you don't have a mechanism to say that's nice for you, if you don't get back on the path, you're going back down the mountain. So that's what's missing when you don't have the one thing, when you create something where you're basically not in a place to move from one point to the other, right? Because you don't have that one thing, you don't have that mission to get to another place. You don't have the ability to say, hey, you were great when we first started and now you're starting not to be. Thank you very much. You're going to either have to write me an exponential check that I'm going to enforce, right? Or we're going to stop, right? So the point is like most designers have, if you don't pay me on time, I get interest, or I get 20%, or I get 30%. Well, here's the point. If they don't pay you on time, they need to pay you 500%. Why? Because they slowed your process down. You can't do what you need to do, and they still want it when they want it. So if somebody, the point is, if somebody wanted you to kind of do what you do in a fifth of the time, then you usually have, the Slinky's really compacted, they can get that, right? They just have to pay for it. So if they started out being the person who had the Slinky the right way, but now all of a sudden, because of what they've done, they've compacted the Slinky, they have to pay for it, right? And so because you don't have that in your process, you don't have that in your ability, what happens is that Veronica Salt gets to stay and take up the entire room, right? So you need to, it's not on her that she gets to do that, it's on you to have the button that puts her down the chute, right?
Right. Okay, that's great. We don't have any more questions submitted, but I have a great question that I think that viewers will appreciate. So we have so many talented designers that are tuning in right now, all who have very profitable businesses. Some who may actually have not established for themselves what their niche is, but we understand now how important that is. Do you recommend any exercises a designer can conduct themselves so they can kind of evaluate and better focus at what their niche is?
Yeah, actually a very specific one. So first of all, you have to understand your niche. And the answer is like, why did you get this in the beginning? What is it that you wanted to do and how that's going to be? And not try to look around the world and say, oh, I would love to help that person. But really, why did you do this in the first place? To discover that. Right. But really what I was hinting at in order to really get that place is to practice in the mirror, record it, do however you want to do, the 2 minutes of your business talking. And that why, when you hear me talk, and I'm certainly, some people listening might say, wow, that guy's just out of his mind. I could never charge $5,000 for a blue meeting, or I could never imagine like asking my clients to sit with me for 20 hours, right? Well, that's fear, right? That's actually fear in your head. That's fear of you're not going to be able to get what you want, right? And so that's also when you translate that and you start to talk to clients and that fear's inside you, it never comes out, right? You bury it deep inside. And so you, as you start to talk to clients and start to especially if you've been doing it very long, are trying to like figure out and be a chameleon to who they are so you can get them to say yes to you. And what I would say to you is like, that's the down the road of being a really bad habit. So as you're starting to literally take out your timer, set it for 2 minutes and have your business talk, right? And as you do that, and when you look back at it and you say, as you watch yourself talk and pretend that you're talking to a client as a business, not as a designer, but as a business for the very first time, what I would submit to you is that you will look back. And when you look back at it, and you maybe even go and get it transcribed, and what you might see is that you're saying things where the opposite can't be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say things where the opposite can't be true, you've told me nothing, right? We'll do really beautiful work, and trust me, we're going to be like totally, totally appreciative of who you are, and we're totally customer service oriented, and you're going to have an amazing design at the end of it, and it's going to be a great trip. Think about that. Think about the opposite of that. I'm really not going to get along with you very well. It's not going to be so beautiful, and maybe we'll get there, and maybe we won't, right? So you didn't tell me anything, right? So I can't tell you how many designers, when I ask them tell me about their business and what they do, they'll do a version of what I just said. So if you challenge yourself to say, this is what I really care about, this is what I want you to do for me, video yourself for 2 minutes, right? And then review that tape of you talking in the camera and say to yourself, did I say something that can't be true? Because if it can't be true, I didn't say anything. And then to really give yourself the benefit of the doubt to say, I just wasted that person's time. That person who has a lot of money, who wants to spend a lot of money with me, who wants something from me, and I just wasted their time. Even if you just wasted their time for 5 seconds, you wasted their time, right? Because when the business is talking, there's no time to waste, right? This is, how is this gonna work? How are we getting up the mountain together? Why should I care, right? And what do you need from me in order for you to get me up the mountain, right? That's when you do that and you practice that and practice that and practice that, what'll happen is that you'll become more convicted of who you are as a business and what you need. And those 2 minutes will set the stage for the rest of it, right? That's
great. Okay. And then to wrap it up, because this is a great follow-up question, Dina has asked, in your opinion, then what is the most important thing to consider in that first client meeting?
The 2 minutes. So I will never comment it. You're talking to the business guy. So I'll never comment on your ability to relate to them as an artist, relate to them about what they're seeing and that their excitement about what you're going to do because of what they've seen, because of your reputation, because of how you've gotten to that place. But in that meeting, right, the difference between amateurs and professionals is in that meeting, you transition to a business. I am the guide. I am the expert. I am the person that's going to get you from here to there, and this is how we're going to do it, right? And you have 2 minutes to do it. You do not have more than 2 minutes. And if you give yourself like, well, we'll just take our time, or I'll send you the contract, or whatever, you've just literally given in to all your fear. So the most important thing when you meet with a client is that you must give 2 minutes. And it's not, I hear it all the time, well, that's my elevator pitch, that's all that stuff. No. This is the business. This is how it's going to work. This is what I need you to do, right? This is what is going to take for you to do this, right? You want to climb Mount Everest with me? You need to train and be able to run a marathon before you ever show up at my door, right? That's a business, right? Oh, I can't wait to take you up the mountain. It's going to be so fun. Don't worry about anything. We're going to get there, right? Who are you going to trust more, right? I hope that you would trust the person. If you're a serious mountain climber and you want to get up to Mount Everest, and that you would then say, the mountain climber tells you need to be in great shape before you show up at my door, is the one you want to go with, right? That's the good point. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. This was such an inspiring really conversation. Lots of food for thought here. I have so many ideas running around in my head, and I see so many people are looking to get in touch with you, Sean. Obviously, you have struck a nerve with people watching today.
Please just email me. I'm very, very good with email. You can call me too. It's on the slide, but my email is sean@thebusinessofbeingcreative.com. I'd love to talk to you.
Yep, and I'll send through a follow-up email with the recording of this webinar. I will send through his contact information. He's very, very responsive to email, so I could tell you firsthand. So thank you, Sean, so much for your words of wisdom today and your contribution to the design community. We really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to hopefully seeing you another time soon.
Absolutely, I'd love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye. And for those of you who are designers and not yet using Ivy, I highly recommend that you stay and stick on. My colleague Risa is going to join, and she is going to do a brief demo of what Ivy is all about and show you how you can use the Ivy software to support your business needs. So here's Risa. Hi, Risa.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for having me today. Very exciting. And that was an awesome presentation by Sean. I will scoot back so you don't see my head full center. And for those of you, I think just to tag along a little bit about what Sean was saying, I think it's really important to have that business side of the business. When you start your interior design business, It's very overwhelming. There's a lot of moving parts, and that's kind of why our co-founders have developed Ivy, to really help you manage the admin side of the business and make more time for design. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you.
Just 1 second. Here you go. 1 sec.
Okay.
Here
Perfect.
you go. Making you a presenter.
Okay, so you should be able to see my screen right now. Perfect. All right, and the main thing that I want to talk about that, a lot of designers struggle with is, how do I run this profitable interior design business? What are the 5 steps that I can really encompass and I can really do? What are the action steps? I think that with interior designers, you are really creative. The admin piece is the hardest part. Tracking time, it's not a fun piece of the business, and that's why we really want to give you something that's intuitive, easy to use, and fun to use. I know that sounds crazy, but a couple of key things I'm going to show you. I highly recommend tracking your time. Even if you don't track your time hourly, you still, and you bill out on a fee-based system, you still want to understand your overall sense of profitability. So how are you going to do that? You can easily just select the project that you're working on and then select the service that you're providing. And then you can start your timer and you can add in your description right here as well. One thing I'm very excited to announce, we just launched our Ivy app. So you can do all of your time tracking on the go. We have an easy app, and that's anybody, if you're already using Ivy and you don't know about the app yet, definitely send us an email. We 100% can make sure that you are logged on to that. So track your time. Easy to do on the go, and you can just stop your timer right here, and you can log your time, and you can also edit this. And for those of you that are billing out in a fee-based system, you can just mark it unbillable. So you click save right here, and then you get to go to your time billing button. And you can generate an invoice. So this is the other thing. Ivy makes you look super professional. And I can log into my project right here. And I can select this little box and I can grab all of the uninvoiced time and I click generate invoice. And now I have this super professional looking invoice, and I can even review and send it and ask my client for an online payment. So I can ask for a bank transfer, credit card. The money goes right into your bank account. There's a little bit of a fee, 3% for credit card and 1.2% for bank transfer. Most designers will roll that cost into their markup on product, but you need to figure out what works for you. I just really want to show you high level what Ivy can do. So no longer are you sitting and waiting to get paid. The money just shows up in your bank account in 1 to 2 business days. So that's great. I think the more efficient you can work, the better off you are in terms of running your business. The other thing I want to show you is the most exciting part, I believe, and what will help your browser or your desktop not look like mine. You can see there's a lot of screenshots all over my browser, my desktop. Ivy, we developed a product clipper. And what this product clipper does is it allows you to clip items directly from your vendor's website. So I can go into my vendor's website right here, and it's a little extension that nests on your browser. And you see how that hand turns blue right there? It allows you to just clip these amazing pink loungers. No longer do you have to take a screenshot. And you can grab the product title. Notice that I'm not copying and pasting. I'm just clipping directly from the vendor's website. You can categorize this. You can add your cost and your purchase fee right here. You can say, okay, I want that to be below list price or below whatever the retail price is, MSRP, and I can type in, $2,000 and it will figure out this purchase fee percentage. Or you can say, okay, I want that to be a 75%, and then Ivy will do the calculation for you. So no longer do you have any human errors. And then you can select your nice vendor. I have a nice long vendor list right here, and if I just type in the CH, it pops in with the vendor's name. I can add a description, and I can add it directly to the project that I'm working on. And then I can add the full details, the SKU, the manufacturer, the dimensions, the finish, the color, and then I can save the product. So you can use this. We have one of our designers that just finds items that she likes, and she'll just save them directly to her product library. She'll add a tag on it so that when she is sourcing, she can easily find that item, right? And that cuts down on your time. So I think there's so much unnecessary time that we spend doing all of these tasks that aren't making us money. And we really are dedicated to not only providing you with content like today, but helping you with a system and a community. That's why Tara mentioned that Ivy is a community and business management tool that will help you really take your business to that next level. I just got an email from an Ivy designer, and she said, thank you so much for not only helping me with all the business administrative stuff, but also helping boost my confidence. And I thought that was a really amazing thing, because that's really why we wake up every day. And for those of you who have met me before, I'm really dedicated to the trade, and I see so much potential, and I want to help you become profitable and run this successful design business that you want to run. So what I'll do is I'll pop into my proposal right here, and then that item that I clipped, since I saved it to a project, if I just click into create new proposal, do you see how it popped up to that project right there? And I can just click it, and it will drop into my proposal. Okay, and then right here, I can add items. So with this little plus sign, I can see all of the products that I've clipped in my library. I can search and type in, sofa. And then I can, this is a colorful house, I guess it's in Palm Springs. I can add in any other items. I can add in service items. So I can add in window covering install, and I can also group these items together. Why Ivy really differentiates itself, and how to QuickBooks is that QuickBooks is really an accounting software, and Ivy does link up to QuickBooks, but we understand specifically how, as an interior designer, you work, what information you might want to share with your client, what information you might not want to share with your client. So when you click save right here, it will allow you to really cater this proposal to this specific client. You might have different clients that want information presented to them in different ways. So we really try to be amenable and adjustable to how you run your business. So I can group these items together, and I can group that together as one line item. I can allow my client to see the markup purchase fee percentage. I can allow my client to approve per line item. So it just creates less back and forth between you and your client. I can even add attachments. If you want to attach your contract right here, you can do that as well. Just lots of versatility. And when you send this over to your client, you also have the ability to view tear sheets with pricing or without pricing. And this is what the tear sheets look like. So it's pretty organized, pretty professional. It has your pricing. You're no longer using, the vendor's tear sheet as yours. This is branded and has the project name, has the description that your client wants to see, has no vendor information unless, again, you want to share that with your client. And then you can save and send it to your client. Once you receive payment for the system, for this proposal, you can actually go ahead and turn it into a purchase order. And you can even pay your vendor through the system. So there's a lot of things that you can do. We really are trying to help centralize your workflow within Ivy. And if you have any employees, we can help them get trained and up and running. With Ivy, you get a dedicated account manager. Our dedicated account managers are amazing. We try to respond to as fast as possible. It's usually one business day, but sometimes faster. We have deep dive training sessions. We have a whole online training portal built out. And the way that we've built Ivy is very intuitive. Sometimes I've talked to a designer and she's like, I'm not using purchase orders. I don't understand. What is that used for? Well, every designer is at a different point in her business, right? And POs, I think, are really great to use because you can actually understand the overall client expenses. And a bigger thing that I want to talk about is making sure that you look at your numbers every day. And these are all steps to really running that profitable design business. So if you are understanding your overall numbers, you'll be able to get to that, sweet spot, that 40% gross profit margin. So you have your vendor PO, super organized. Your vendor will love you. You can send this directly to your vendor. You can plug in the estimated ship date, and then everything will fall onto a project calendar for you so that you know when things are happening. Your assistant knows when things are happening. You can check things in as you're receiving packages. You have this calendar. It can sync to the calendar on your iPhone. And then my favorite feature besides the product clipper is the project tracker. I used to manually create these, and it took a scary amount of time. And this, you can have everything logged, all of your scheduling information, and you can even bump this out as a PDF for your FF&E schedule. You can download as an Excel if you wish to color code it, or whatever you wish to do with the project tracker, but you no longer have to do this in Excel. It's all done right in IAV, and it's all created for you once you plug in the information. The other thing I wanted to show you is, of course, if you already have a vendor list or a client list, you can import that right into your IAV account. And very easy. The best part here is that it saves all of your account usernames and passwords, which I used to always search between like a million different Google Docs, and it was never updated. You can save vendor tags, so you can easily remember what that vendor does. And you also have your product library. So once you save an item once, it saves into your product library, and you can easily access all of that information in the system at any time, okay? And let me go over here and just show you one other thing. Ivy is really easy to set up, really easy to get moving, get grooving. But I do want to call out that, setting up your account, you will get an activation call with your dedicated account manager to help you get up and running. And you can connect your Ivy account. It's a one-way sync from Ivy to QuickBooks Online. We also have a special partnerships with QuickBooks Online where you can get special pricing on your QuickBooks account. So that's very cool. And we have a QuickBooks expert that can help you with any QuickBooks questions. The last thing that I want to talk about is the community that we've created. We've created not only our own private Ivy Facebook group that you can access right directly from your Ivy account, where designers are sharing so much invaluable feedback. It's like having your own business coach. People are sharing their contracts. People are sharing, if you're having an issue with your client, you can really use this resource to build your business. People are sharing their vendor contact list. They'll go to market, they'll scope out all the vendors, and they'll share vendor names with you so you have new places to source from. Totally invaluable. And then we also have our curated network of service providers. So if you need somebody, this is my favorite thing, running a profitable interior design business, you can't do everything. So I think the easiest way to remedy this is outsource to somebody that you trust. So if you don't have time to do your CAD drawings, you can hire somebody to do your 3D renderings for you. These are all vetted, guys that are all vetted through the Ivy system. We have some design assistants in here available to their virtual design assistants that can help you with extra tasks that you just don't have the bandwidth for. Again, you can find business coaches in here. Nancy is great. So is Scarlet Threading. These guys are all really amazing, and they've all worked or been vetted through Ivy designers. And this is a great way to really take your business to the next level. So I'll close it out. I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you guys have dedicated a lot of your morning to us, but I really do want to tell you that you are definitely, we want to give you a one-on-one demo. We want to share more information with you. So please go ahead, email us at tara@ivy.co. We'll type that into the box so you have that information. It's tara@ivy.co, and we can schedule your personalized one-on-one demo so that we can really understand your business and really help advise you. There's so many different ways of using Ivy, but that's why we really get to know our designers. When we go to market, we have events. Obviously, we have a lot of online events too, but definitely shoot us an email so that we can get you that one-on-one conversation with one of our Ivy gurus. And I will turn it back over to Tara to see if she has any questions. If we don't have any questions today, thank you so much for joining joining us. We really appreciate it, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
Hi, Risa, one thing. So we haven't seen any questions come in, but I know that there are a lot of things that people will want to hear about. So I'll just have you touch on a couple of things. So one, a lot of designers know they care about reporting. What's the easiest way for designers to look at profitability reports, transaction reports, that sort of thing?
Great question. Within your Ivy account, there is a way to pull reports. Again, it's high level reports. If you wanted to understand what I was talking about, like your gross profit margin, that's where you would connect with QuickBooks Online. And it's a pretty easy sync to set up. The most important part is making sure that you set up your categories, your COA, your charts of accounts correctly so that it syncs over to QuickBooks correctly. So we can show you how to do that. We can dive a little bit more deeper in your one-on-one conversation.
Great. And can you also show everyone how easy it is to create a tear sheet?
Yes. So you just would click in. Can you still see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, cool. So you would literally just click into the proposal over here. And you would click into proposals. And then over here, when I'm in my proposal, you click into it, and you just always, that 3 dots in the right-hand corner, you'll just click View Tear Sheets, and you can view it with pricing or without pricing, and then it generates these beautiful professional tear sheets for you.
Perfect. So easy. Yeah. Thank you. I don't see that we have any other questions, but thank you so much for walking through this. And we know this is a lot of information at once. So as Lisa said, like every single one of you, you need a personal demo. We want to show you exactly how Ivy can support the needs of your business. Everyone runs their business differently, and we understand that and respect that. So please email me. I put it in the chat at tara@ivy.co, and we can schedule a personal demo with you either this week or next week, whenever works for you. And we're excited to help take your business to the next level.
Thank you so much, you guys. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.